6.2 notes laws of exponents. So today we'll focus on some of the laws of exponents, and then you'll learn the rest of them throughout the rest of the week. So what we will focus on today is using the zero and negative exponents. We will use the product of powers and quotient of powers properties of exponents, and we will solve real-life problems involving exponents. So let's do an exponent review. You should have already learned about exponents before 9th grade. You would have learned it in middle school. First of all, a power is a product of repeated factors. And so this whole thing right here is the power. Okay, and then you have the base of a power is the common factor. Okay, so the base right here is the 2/5. And then the exponent of a power indicates the number of times the base is used as a factor. In other words, how many times will we take the base and multiply it by itself? So the exponent is raised to the third power, and so we take the base of 2/5 and multiply it by itself 3 times. Use your calculator to evaluate the following. So pause for just a moment and put in 3 raised to the 0 power, then 5 raised to the 0 power, and then negative 10 raised to the 0 power, and see what you get. If you're not sure how to type this into your calculator, you will use the caret top button, which is right underneath the clear button in your calculator, and so it would look like this when you typed it in. 3, the little caret top, and then 0. So do that for each of these in your calculator and see what you get. When you type 3 raised to the 0 power in the calculator, you get 1. When you type in 5 raised to the 0 power, you get 1. When you type in negative 10 raised to the 0 power, you get 1. So what do you notice that all of these have in common? What they have in common is that they all are equal to 1. So in other words, any number raised to the 0 power, with the exception of the number 0, is equal to 1. So for the next part where it says write a conjecture based on the previous 3 problems, this is what we would write. For any number other than 0 raised to the 0 power equals 1. Next, we're going to talk about negative exponents. In order to simplify negative exponents, we have a phrase that will help us to remember what to do. And that phrase is cross the line, change the sign. So in other words, if when we are simplifying a negative exponent, what we need to do is bring that down below the division line, and it will change the sign to a positive, and then we have simplified it. So for example, we have a raised to the negative n power. Now remember, if we don't see a coefficient, or in other words a number in front of the variable, then that coefficient is an understood 1. Okay, so now if we're going to simplify this, we need to bring the base and the exponent below the line and leave the coefficient above. Okay, so this we leave the 1 on the top and we bring the a to the negative n power below the line and leave the 1 on top. So let's do an example of that. Here we have 5 over 3x to the negative 2. And we want to get rid of the negative exponent. Now this time the negative starts below the line, so this time we're going to have to move it above the line. So we leave the 5 where it's at because it doesn't have a negative exponent, so it's going to stay where it's at. And then the only thing we're going to move is the negative exponent and its base. So in other words, that 3 will stay on the bottom, and then we move the x and its exponent to the top but we change the sign. So if it's negative, then we change it to a positive. So it becomes 5x squared over 3. Notice this bold statement at the bottom saying that simplified polynomials may not have negative exponents. So if you have a negative exponent, then you have not simplified your polynomial as far as it can go. In other words, if you see a negative exponent, you need to keep simplifying. Now I want you to use the two exponent laws that you just learned, the zero exponent and the negative exponent, and complete numbers 1 through 8. Once you have completed numbers 1 through 8, then unpause your video and check to see if you got it correct. So right now pause, attempt numbers 1 through 8, and then check them when you're done. The answer to number 1 is 1. The answer to number 2 is 1. The answer to number 3 is 1 divided by 81. Number 4, I ran out of room, so I worked it down here, and number 4 should be 1 divided by 64. Number 5 should be 1/8. Number 6 is negative 8 over 9. Number 7 is negative 1/4. And number 8, I ran out of room again, and so number 8, the answer should be 1/3. Now I want you to attempt numbers 9 through 14 and see where you can get with that before you move on. Notice that some of these involve not just the zero exponent or not just the negative exponent, but both. So you may have to use both rules in one problem.